Mitchell Schwartz is our guest. Mitch, it is good to see you, my friend.
You too. Glad to be on.
It's we've been watching you here at training camp. I got to ask you, you've been in this league long enough, and to win a Super Bowl, to have that feeling, but this reinventing yourself, to kind of reboot your game and your body and what you have to go through. What about what you've done to think last year's last year, let's move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it kind of starts at the top with Coach, with Pat. I mean, everyone's very, very critical of themselves. I think, when you look back and you say, hey, we were down by double digits in all those games. I mean, that's not where we want to be. We want to start faster. We want to play better throughout. That's not the goal, is to win on these crazy runs and at the end of games. It's about winning, but I think that we're all pretty motivated to be a better team, be better individually. I think that's kind of the coolest thing about Pat, is that he's so self-motivated. I mean, we saw EB's quote the other day, but he's so self-motivated to be better, and you can look at him and you say, youngest guy to be MVP and win Super Bowl MVP, he can chill and take it easy, but he's out there harder on himself than anybody, and so that just invigorates all of us. And I think we're all individually like that. I mean, Coach and Brett Veach have done a great job of bringing guys in who work that way or wire that way, and then that thing spreads, and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, you've seen the competitive nature of how camp is, and it's a lot of guys who think they're the best, who are the best, and who want to prove it every day.
And Mitchell, one way you get better is adding tools to your tool chest, different techniques, different things you can do out there. And you've mentioned a few days ago in your presser that when you're out here in camp, this is when you can learn those things. You can figure out what works and what doesn't. How important is figuring those things out in this camp?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, O-line, D-line especially, the timing of things, that's always what takes, kind of the longest to come back. Because, I mean, you could be off by, 2 inches in your punch or a split second, and that could be the difference between basically making every block and missing every block, because if your biomechanics aren't together, that's when things kind of go haywire on you. So getting that back first is important, kind of getting your base fundamentals. But then, yeah, I mean, you need to experiment. I mean, it's similar to, Pat a few years ago saying Coach wants him to make those throws, see what he can do. I mean, if they pick it, they pick it. It's a no consequence situation. In camp, you have to see what your limits are. You have to, become comfortable with things that you're typically not comfortable with. I mean, first game, I'm going against a pretty good guy out there, and if I'm not working on stuff now and I'm not confident enough to do it in practice, I'm not going to be confident enough to do it in a game. So being able to hone in on that and try new things and see what works and see what doesn't, that's what practice is definitely all about.
It's just a follow-up. I always tell fans when they can watch practice in St. Joe, okay, they're doing 7-on-7, let those guys go. Go watch the OLD line when you guys are one-on-one. That, to me, is something between like Ultimate Fighting Challenge and the Division I NCAA Wrestling Championships. What about approaching that mentally and how you have to get yourself ready for the one-on-one and for in front of everybody to see?
Yeah, it's not the greatest situation to be in as an O-lineman, and that's, you kind of realize throughout the years, you kind of just think practice is stacked against you, but you realize, a lot of the situations are kind of lean towards the defense, because in 9-on-7, we're running the ball. One-on-one pass rush, like, they're going to pass rush at all costs. They have all the space. There's, no one else to be there. You're in all these cool situations where it really challenges you and it really puts the onus on you. I mean, we talk all the time, end of game situations, being in 4 minutes and needing to run the ball when everybody knows you're running it. It's the same thing in a one-on-one. I mean, you need to pass block when everyone knows you're pass blocking. That guy's geared up. He's got all the rest in the world. He's ready to go. It's definitely different. But again, that's a time to try something different. You can keep doing the same pass set every time, and if you are good at that, that's great. But if you're not trying these new things, I mean, that's an ultimate kind of high leverage situation where I really want to see if this works when everything's going, because that's probably the most similar thing you're going to have to that 3rd and 12 or that 3rd and 15 is a one-on-one pass rush. And so those are the times to really hone your craft. And like you said, it's a lot of fun. You can look pretty bad pretty quick, which is the unfortunate part. But if you're losing those battles, but you're doing it in the right way, that's when things can get better. If your feet are good, but your hands are bad, all right, we'll fix the hands next time. So there's always these micro adjustments, and it's just, it's a fun process. And I think, D-line perspective, I mean, those guys are so much more skilled than you think about. I mean, watching Chris do his thing, I mean, he's a huge dude, but how nimble he is and how good he is with his hands, it's just, it's a lot of fun to watch.
So that one-on-one stuff is obviously, as you said, really important. But the offensive line is also kind of like an orchestra. You guys are all in concert together. How's the cohesiveness gone so far, getting to know some new players on this offensive line, some new guys in that room, Mike Rimmers, Coleccio Simile? What's impressed you about them, and how do you feel about the cohesiveness so far in your guys' group?
Yeah, those guys have been awesome. I mean, I think they're both the same year I am, so we've got a bunch of year 9 guys now, and a lot of good football in the room, a lot of good players. This is the oldest the group's ever been since I've been here. I mean, like I said, I think us three are year 9. I mean, Fish is year 8. Austin, I have no idea, but he's like year 6 or something. But we've got a lot of guys that have played a lot of ball, and it's really fun. It's cool. It's the acclimation process is a lot quicker for those guys typically because in the NFL, everyone uses, just a few different types of terminology. And so you've pretty much done the thing that's being asked of you. It's just been called something else and having to, kind of flip it in your brain that, hey, this place we called it this and now it's called this. And there's a couple adjustments in terms of technique. But when you're an older guy, it's just kind of gets picked up quicker. You're not necessarily learning defenses. You're not learning general concepts of run plays. I mean, you have that stuff down. And so it's knowing the little nuance stuff that's different, the wording stuff that's different, and then, like I said, kind of the how to go about my job that could be different from a previous spot because you could have literally the same run play, but we might run it different than another place, and this place runs it different. And so kind of adjusting those angles is really key for the offensive line spot.
Mitchell, playing this game for 8 years and going into your 9th, as you stated, and never missing a game, you get into a routine. You have a camp routine, regular season routine, and off-season routine. This new normal in dealing with the health and safety protocols, how much have you had to adjust to that in getting into a routine within that realm?
So that part's actually been pretty easy. I've been wearing a mask indoors and then around people for a long time. It's just kind of standard practice for me now. That stuff's totally normal. Obviously washing your hands and keeping your distance and that stuff. To me, that's been the normal part. It's just, like you said, a different camp schedule. And so there's a lot of things up in the air. I mean, the first week we were here, the PA and the NFL were still working on what the rules were. So we were kind of going through it. And, every day is just hey, 10 o'clock, here comes the schedule for tomorrow. So that's been the hard part. And, things aren't quite as spaced out as they normally would be because, we're at the facility and then at Arrowhead and we got to travel back and forth. And, there's some extra time built in there for travel. And so you're not getting the same kind of breaks. Like, for instance, right now, I typically have enough time to go ice bath, shower, lunch, go back to the dorm room, throw on the Normatec for some recovery, maybe take a quick nap, and then get up, go to meetings, and that's all super condensed, and so you're not able to do that. And so it really puts the onus on players to take care of themselves. And that's one thing I always appreciated with Coach's schedule is it might have been long days, but he spaces things out to the point where you're either doing something or you have a chance to recover, or you're doing something, chance to recover. And he takes care of us really well that way. And that's been, I think probably the biggest difference is there aren't those, big chunks throughout the day where we're able to, have a few hours to go do something. And so that's, like I said, puts the onus on us to be professionals and do what we need to do to, take care of our bodies, because it's definitely different. I wasn't here for the lockout in 11, and I'm sure it was similar for those guys, but just trying to find your way in kind of a new situation.
Mitchell, we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you about this last point. You're an all-pro on the field, obviously, but you're also an all-pro as a chef. Any new recipes that you're working on right now?
I'm always thinking about what I'm going to cook on the next off day. I'm trying to. Brisket is like the thing, the thorn in my side that I just can't figure out. It gives me a huge appreciation for all these awesome Kansas City barbecue spots that every time you go, like, the brisket's perfect, the ribs are perfect. Every time I cook them, it's way different, and I can't get the hang of it. I'm not necessarily willing to wake up at 2 a.m. to start a fire and get that going, so I got to try to make do on the old pellet grill. But I think that's kind of my long-term challenge is really honing in on a brisket. And I've started to migrate towards grilling things more traditional. I relied on sous vide and reverse sear for a while for steaks and other thicker cuts of meat, and trying to learn just kind of traditional, just grill it, go for it, make sure it's cooked properly and take it off, and that way you're not spending all the time kind of waiting for it to be ready for you. So I think that's those are the two things that kind of on my plate in terms of trying to master the craft of.
I think I'll speak for Matt, Mitchell, in the fact that we'll take your experimental residue.
Yeah.
I've tasted some of that. It ain't bad, okay? You got to give yourself a little credit here.
Well, you tasted the good stuff. I don't bring in the experiments.
Okay. We'll leave that to Brooke, right? She gets your experiments. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being such a pro, and we'll get ready to run this back, friend.
Yeah, let me on. I appreciate it.